The Detroit Pistons are building one of the best young cores in the league, and at the center of it all is Cade Cunningham. I think people forgot about Cade and the Pistons this year, considering they won just 17 games, the only team in the league to win less than 20 games this season, and Cade only played in 12 games before a shin injury that required season-ending surgery. But make no mistake, the Pistons still have an incredibly bright future, and I still believe that Cade Cunningham is the future franchise player of this team and still has a chance to be one of the best players in the league. I do understand some of the skepticism with Cade Cunningham. I understand why some people believe that he's just a product of draft Twitter hype and being the first overall pick, because he really hasn't proved much in the NBA up to this point. Had a good rookie season, 17.4 points per game, 5.5 rebounds per game, 5.6 assists per game, and in 12 games this season, he averaged 19.9 points per game, 6.2 rebounds per game, 6 assists per game. However, the efficiency isn't that good. 41.6, 31.4, 84.5 splits with a 50.42 shooting percentage as a rookie, 41.5, 27.9, 83.7 splits with a 49.2 true shooting percentage in year 2. So while I do understand that he's relatively productive, he hasn't proven to be close to an efficient scorer. A career 50.2 true shooting percentage isn't ideal to say the least, especially when you compare it to Jalen Green's 54.2 true shooting percentage, which isn't great, but still a lot better. And Jalen Green's a player who's been heavily criticized for his efficiency, among other things we don't need to get into. But the point still stands that Cade isn't efficient, and that's a problem right now. However, I still believe in Cade a lot as a player, because like with all NBA players, it goes beyond the numbers on the surface. When you look at the year 2 numbers for Cade on the surface, they are really bad. A 49.2 true shooting percentage over 12 games is downright awful. There's no way around it. But he was also dealing with injuries during games he played, specifically toward the end. I watched all 12 games Cade played this past season, and what I noticed is that the injuries really started to be evident on tape during those final 4 games. But I was really encouraged by what I saw in those first 8 games leading up to those final 4 games. In the first 8 games, he averaged 23.1 points per game, 6.1 rebounds per game, 6.8 assists per game on 44.7, 30, 85.3 splits with a 52.52 shooting percentage. Not good efficiency by any means, and he still clearly had ups and downs on tape, but I would say that it was a promising start for a second NBA season. His first NBA season probably coming off being healthy for the most part, I would say. He looked the most healthy he did in his NBA career during those 8 games. However, over his final 4 games, he averaged just 13.5 points per game, 6.3 rebounds per game, 4.5 assists per game on 33.3, 23.8, 77.8 splits with a 40.1 true shooting percentage. So I do think what he showed when healthy was more promising than what people believe. That's not to say he would have been an all-star or the Pistons would be a playing team if he didn't get hurt and was healthy all season, but I do think they would have been better than they were. I think a lot better than 17 wins, and probably wouldn't have been close to the worst team in basketball. I still think they probably would have been a bottom 5 to 6 record, but I don't think people understand just how bad the Pistons were this year. They were the worst team in the league by a decent margin in terms of wins and win percentage, and I think if Cade was on the team and he was able to play, they would have been closer to that Indiana range than they were, again, at the legit bottom of the league. Because I think Cade is a very talented player whose skill set does make those around him better. Cade's offense starts with his playmaking ability. He's one of the highest field playmakers for his age I've ever seen. He has incredible vision, he has really good creativity. He knows how to control pace in an interesting way. He doesn't try to force things, and he lets the game play out, and he controls what he can within that And I find that very unique about his playmaking style, and also, again, speaks to how high of a field player he is. He manipulates defenses pretty well. I wouldn't say it's on the level of a Trae Young or LaMelo Ball, but it's still pretty good. And he's capable of doing those basic plays as well, the ones that lead to easy buckets, because that's important when you are looking at elite playmakers. Can they do the basic stuff on top of the improvising? And Cade does both of those things very well. He does need to work a bit on his accuracy. That's like the one thing I feel like he needs to work on a little bit, but I think that can improve with reps. And I just look at his playmaking intangibles and bet on him to figure out that one little problem he has. He's a player that creates advantages for his teammates, which is something that every team covets. And I think he's well on his way to being one of the best playmakers in basketball. Now, in terms of his scoring ability, I think the best place to start is his pull-up jumper, where he shoots 40.9% on 3.4 attempts per game for his career. He's very good at getting to his spots, very comfortable adjusting his form. He can improvise and counter once he gets to his spots. He has the height and wingspan to make his form hard to contest. He's good at using his strength and handle to get to his spots. I would like to see the volume on these type of shots go up, because I think it's something he shows he's pretty good at on tape, and I believe it should be utilized to its fullest potential. He's a pretty good mid-range shooter at 42.9% on 2.5 attempts per game for his career, and it's something I think he could expand on a bit, maybe get that number up to around 4 to 4.5, maybe 5 attempts per game from the mid-range, because I think that would expand his offensive game and open things up for him. And I'll explain more later when we talk about one of the big flaws in this game. Now, we have to talk about his three-point shooting. 30.9% on 5.6 attempts per game. This is an area he has to improve on, especially in the modern NBA as a primary playmaker. Now, when I watched the tape, I got the sense of it being a lot more about consistency than ability. I think he needs to improve his shot selection a little bit. It's not the worst shot selection in the world, but he definitely could get better. But the thing for me is he doesn't lack confidence, which is a good sign already. Now, that can be a double-edged sword. We saw it with Dillon Brooks. Having too much confidence can be a problem. But I think for Cade, he does have the tools to be a really good shooter. He was a really good shooter in college. And I think confidence is key. He's not afraid to try different types of shots and take difficult shots off the dribble, or even do catch and shoot stuff. He has a pretty versatile shot diet. He did tweak his form a little bit, so it will take time to adjust to certain aspects of shooting. And I think that was evident in his rookie year. Through the games where he was healthy this year, I felt the same way. Again, it didn't feel like he's a bad shooter. It's not like I would leave him on an island. So he at least fits the baseline level shooting that I believe is the mark in the NBA. But he does need to get better. He needs to improve his consistency. Maybe look a little bit on the shot selection. I think it's something that could improve with more reps. And I think this season upcoming will really be the sign of where he is as a shooter. I think he should be around 33 to 35% from 3 on pretty good volume this upcoming season. I think if he gets to that, that's an encouraging sign. I mean, he's on the right track. And maybe he gets to being a really good shooter. I don't think that's out of the cards, but we do have to base off what we see right now. And based off right now, I do think being an average shooter is probably a more realistic outcome for the short term and maybe the long term, but I could see him being a lot better of a shooter than that. I'm actually more concerned about his finishing than his shooting. He doesn't lack the physical tools or strength as a finisher, which makes his 48.2% or 8.4 paint attempts per game for his career very confusing. And the reason for his inefficiency as a finisher is even more interesting, I would say, because it's not due to a lack of strength or ability to get to the basket. It's about his inconsistency once he gets to the basket. A lot of his misses are due to how indecisive he is as a finisher. You'll notice he doesn't fully put effort into finishing attempts when he misses. Sometimes he's looking to pass. Sometimes it's because of a lack of confidence on a drive. And a big reason for that, in my opinion, is a lack of understanding of how to attack and draw contact at a high level. His reps where the finishing is successful, he's using power, he's confident, he's under control, and he's either finishing or drawing contact. And it's clear that his goal is to get to the basket and finish at the basket during those reps. His reps where the finishing isn't successful, it feels like he wants to use a pull-up jumper, but his spot gets cut off, or he's looking to pass, but the opening wasn't there. So how can he improve here? Like I mentioned earlier, I believe his pull-up mid-range jumper will open up driving opportunities more, because he's a pretty good mid-range shooter right now. It's just that he doesn't utilize it as much as he probably should. If he becomes a serious mid-range pull-up threat rather than a pretty good one, I think it will open up easier and more favorable offensive scenarios on drive attempts. It's easy for me to say that as just a guy on the internet, and I understand that, and it's probably not as simple as that. But I do think the thing with Cade is the numbers don't look great, and it's understandable why people are skeptical of him. But at the same time, I feel like he's good in areas that he can expand upon, and expanding on those areas that he's good at will make his flaws easier to counter, because it will make the opportunities where he may not be the greatest easier because he's so good at other things. I think his ability to hit threes consistently and be a pull-up mid-range threat will open up his finishing ability, because it's not about a lack of tools, it's more about putting yourself in favorable situations, and being a really good shooter will put yourself in more favorable situations as a driver. I still believe in Cade Cunningham as a franchise player upside talent. At 6'6", 220 pounds with a 7-foot wingspan, he does things you just can't teach. You can't teach his skill, can't teach his feel for the game, can't teach his wiring or intangibles as a player. He just does things that make him a rare talent, in my opinion. Now, it's not like he's perfect. It's not like he doesn't have things to work on. And it's not a guarantee that he becomes that franchise player or that superstar that I believe he can become. It's not a guarantee that he improves on his flaws, but I see the path to where he could improve on those flaws, because his flaws are things that can be made easier in terms of opportunities if he improves on his strengths. And I think that's encouraging more than if he wasn't a good shooter at all, or if he didn't have any confidence as a shooter. That's not something that's very fixable, but he has the confidence as a scorer to the point where he will work to improve, because he does have a good work ethic, and he will try and get better at his ability to shoot the basketball, and that will open up his opportunity as a finisher. So I think that is something to bet on. I don't really see a path where he isn't a good NBA player. Maybe he doesn't become that superstar, but I really don't think that he flails out of the league by any stretch of the imagination. I could be wrong, it happens more times than not, but he's a very rare talent, one that I find hard to bet against. He has a rare combination of feel and intangibles, and those are ones that I'm willing to bet on potentially making him one of the best players in the league one day. But that's the end of this video. If you made it to this point, thank you so much. Again, haven't already, like, subscribe, hit notification bell, notified whenever I release a video. I'm making videos about basketball all the time, and liking and subscribing are the two best ways you can help me out in the YouTube algorithm, help more people find my videos, so in turn, help the channel grow so I can make more content for you guys in the future. So I get 100 likes on this video so YouTube will recommend it to others. Let me know what you think about Cade Cunningham in the comment section below. With that being said, have a nice day, and I'll see you guys in the next one.